welcome everyone. For those that haven't met us before, my name's Andrew. I am one of the lead mentors of Project Bucephalus, and we do FLL and we do FRC. So that typically means I have a heck of a lot of my time around FIRST robotics during the course of a season. So, and if I just butt in for a second, Lyndall, I'm getting messages from coach email. Someone's having trouble getting in. Can you check that out?
Yep.
Awesome. So, who we are. That was taken in Estonia a couple of years ago, back when we were still allowed to travel. So, we're from Wollongong in New South Wales. Technically, we're not part of Sydney, but at the moment we're regarded as part of Greater Sydney, which is a source of much angst in our community, which means we get tagged with the lockdowns. This is Wollongong, for those of you who haven't seen it. So we have a bit of fun whenever we do projects, because we got beach, we got bush, we got mountains, we got the whole lot we can deal with. So we've been running FLL since 2010. We kicked off for Body Forward, and this will be our 12th season. So the short version is we've been around quite a while. We've attended 11 of the national tournaments. We've qualified for internationals 10 times. COVID sort of kicked that last one out. We've run 6 regionals ourselves. We've been judges, referees, teachers, and we're also FRC mentors. So this is 5985. This is for the older kids. I've been around a while on that one too. 2016 was our first year. And we've got 34 kids from 15 high schools on the team at the moment, including a decent chunk of homeschoolers. And probably something like 82% of that team do FLL and FRC. And when you take into account those that mentor FLL teams, it shoots up to the high 90s. So we do a lot with the Lego robotics. So I'm going to run you through quickly what it is we're going to do, how it is we're going to do it, and then we'll get into the content. So standard warning, we're going to be dumping a lot of information on you. That does not mean you have to do everything. Pick and choose. Feel free to ignore us. Feel free to improve on it. So normally our kickoff covers everything. We do hands-on lessons. We do how to build robots. We do how to do the project. But what we're trying to do this time around is avoid duplicating what we did in that conference. I think it was in June or July. So we want to provide as broad a picture as possible, and with everyone learning something. Also do bear in mind the engineering notebook and team guide can supplement the material we provide. Some teams won't even look at it. Other teams will base their season on it. It's all okay. We normally look through them and just pick and choose the parts that are useful. And I will be putting these slides out as a PDF when we're done. So they will be accessible. Now, if you have not seen the FLL conference video, it runs for 5 hours, and anyone attempting to watch their way through that is going to have a rough time. So this is the time tags of that video. I'm going to ask Winona to put them up for us. So the start your engine, the nuts and bolts are the bare bones. Start your engines are designed for the rookie coaches. And then the best practices sessions are Team Apollo and ourselves going through how we do a season in depth. So if there's any particular aspect that we touch on today that you want more info on, take a look at that. Maybe take a screenshot of those times and go take a look, and then ask questions on the kickoff channel afterwards. We'll be monitoring that from here on out. All right. So we're going to go through some units on as many parts of FLL as we can. Now, please put questions on the kickoff channel, and that way our helpers can let me know to stop and answer them. We are going to be doing longer question times at the end of each session, as long as we can spare. So the basic idea here is we're going to start with an overview. We're going to go to a deep dive of the robot rules, and then we're going to run a session on remote team management. So how to do FLL and COVID. Now, that remote team management session is going to be repeated on Thursday night. Winona, I believe, has already sent out some emails about that, but she'll definitely put some more out on Monday. So if you can't sit through this whole day, that's perfectly all right. So this is our basic outline that we're hoping to hit. Now, again, we've got a large number, so we may or may not get all our way through it. So have we got any questions up already, Lyndall?
We do have one question, Andrew, from someone asking about them not being able to access stuff. I think it's the
engineering notebook and
oh, yep. Okay.
team meeting guide.
So they're not a part of a team yet because they can't access them.
Right. Okay, yep, Monique, that's a Winona question. What I've found with the First Systems site, if you're not logged in as the email that's the coach, you can have trouble accessing it. So yeah, Winona will get to it pretty quickly. Unfortunately, I've got no power over that, and we're not allowed to share the documents. You've got to be registered to see them. That's part of the rules that First has laid down for First Australia to be able to send this stuff out. So that's just some of the red tape that Winona and Luann have to deal with. Okay. So just a little bit of why we're doing this and what we're doing. Now, a few of you have seen this before, but a reminder is always good. Okay, so from the archives, there used to be a rule called GP1. You're gracious professionals. You compete hard against problems while treating all people with respect and kindness. Bolding is intentional and mine. So if we're doing FLL, it's you versus the table, not you versus another team. Now, this one, I haven't seen as much of this recently as I used to, but if you're in this to win it, you're in the wrong spot, wrong place. If you're in it to try hard and do well, go for it. But if winning or losing makes or breaks the season for you, then yeah, this is not going to be a fun time. Adjustment to attitude is required. I know, because I had to do it early on myself. So just some limitations. Of course, we don't know everything, right? These slides, anything that's got our logo on it, is pretty much based on our experiences. And we're not perfect, right? Everything can be improved. We can change our minds. We can be proven wrong. Hey, technology changes. Spike has changed an awful lot of stuff about philosophy, design, and planning. And also, we never stop learning. So every time we present this, you may find some things sound very familiar, but a bunch of stuff changes. So you're going to need to do that as well. But just bear in mind that what we say this year may be different next year. Now, this is what I want your teams to be able to do. This is like our should list. Your teams should create their own unique robot, right? It should be their creativity. Now, being inspired by other teams is fine, but don't just copy. Try and improve things. So that's one reason I don't let my kids look on YouTube to see robots in 3 days or something like that, because once you see something, you can't unsee it. Each team should be able to make their own mistakes and discoveries, right? That's how you learn best, right? Don't shield the kids from failure. Let them experience, cope with it, and move on. And they should be able to deal with failure as well as success. Now, that's a lot harder than it looks, but the rewards are extreme. I have seen kids cheering to raise the roof over a robot that was failing completely, but the operators did not give up. They just kept on going. And that was what was being cheered for. And at the end of it, they were proud that they were upset, but they kept their heads up. They kept trying, and everyone admired them for it. And they knew it. And lastly, seeking new challenges, right? We're always setting new goals. We've been doing this 12 years. Obviously, we don't have the same team anymore, but if you're a veteran team, each year you should be identifying something new to try. You should be finding something you didn't know how to do and giving it a shot. So that's our philosophy as to what teams should be doing. Then we get to a philosophy of what they should not be doing, right? I do not wish to see any team fail because of undetected, easy to fix issues, right? Cables coming unplugged is the #1 cause of those things. My philosophy here is that I can look at your robot and ID and fix the issue in under 30 seconds. You should not be experiencing it. We should be making sure that doesn't happen to you. So if you're going to fail, you should be trying for brand new robot blowing up and catching on fire mistakes. You should not be doing the easy stuff. A team should not be demoralized, right? And there's no inspiration, there's no value when you fail continually without understanding why. Now, my second one, cables coming unplugged is definitely #1 on my hit list. #2 is the phrase, but it worked at home, when their robot fails every single time at a tournament. That's because they were using dead reckoning, most likely, weren't using sensors, and the whole approach was flawed. That's demoralizing. We don't want that to happen. Lastly, no team should be on their own. There's a huge amount of knowledge out there. There's also a huge amount of community. If you get onto that new Slack workspace or onto the FLL help desk in Australia and say, I need help, you'll be buried pretty quickly with coaches and teams that want to help, particularly during COVID. If you reach out to one of the international groups, like the FLL Share and Learn Facebook page, again, you will receive a ton of assistance if you need it. Okay, so that is the philosophy, and now we're about to get, now we are about to get into the actual event itself. So we got any questions up on the workspace yet, girls? Yep, okay. Moving on then.
No more questions yet.
So this one is for the adults. So if there's any kids around, you may want to listen to this, but this is mostly for the adults. And I don't just mean coaches, I mean the parents, team parents as well. If they understand this, you'll have a much easier time as a coach. So first off, this is a weird event. It really, really is. It is better for your team to fail on their own to succeed rather than succeeding because an adult did the work for them. Or it's better for them to fail together than succeed because one kid did all the work, right? Adults that do too much hurt a team's chances of doing well. It really does. And the judges, even the rookies, are very good at telling if an adult was too involved. The signs are obvious, right? When we go to a tournament, we rely on the good old ceremonial duct tape. That's what we put over the mouths and hands of the parents that can't handle being quiet. We had to use it ourselves a few times, or just look down at the floor and think really, really hard and don't offer. Yeah, the kids are on their own, and that's the way it should be. So if you're a coach and you're touching the computer during a tournament, like debugging their code or something like that, you should not be doing that. Stand behind them with your hands behind your back, ask questions and say, hey, why don't you try this? Go nuts, but don't do it for them. It looks bad and it hurts your team's success. 2, the mentors will teach skills, but the kids have got to choose how to use them. And this is a bit that relates to the top up there. I will teach my team how to make a robot follow a line, but it's up to them to figure out when they want to use that skill. And that's what makes a successful team. They learn stuff and then they apply it on their own. Now, a team's behavior will affect their score, and I include coaches in that. There are core values reports being filed. The referees will let people know. And this year in Cargo Connect, there is even a core values component in your robot game score, right? People are watching and they will see the good behavior and they want to reward it. How you compete is just as important as what you achieve, possibly even more so. This is an old core value before they revamp them, but it's a good one to keep in mind. What you learn is more important than what we win. And they're not kidding, right? If you go into it with that attitude, you will do well. The best way to lose is to try too hard to win. And of course, it's more than robots. And that means above everything, don't get sucked into just doing the robot. Don't forget there's a project and a core values element as well. They need as much attention. They're worth as many points. They're part of the experience. So make sure they get to experience, your kids get to experience. Now, if you want to share this with your parents, your team parents, that's a reasonably good way to reduce some disappointing behavior, or shall we say ugly behavior from time to time, if they know what to expect. If all people know is the standard go to a competition and win at all costs attitude, you're going to have a rough time in FLL. So get them to understand this, get them to understand it early, and you'll get a lot more out of it and your job will be a lot easier. I know this one from bitter experience. So these are the core values. The new graphic they've used: discovery, innovation, impact, teamwork, inclusion, and fun. Now, I'm not going to go through each of those one by one just yet, but I am going to point out the fun. One of the things we'll say is there's no point in doing this. There's absolutely no point in doing this if you're not enjoying it. Okay, so having gone through now that we've had a weird event and we've got to have fun doing it, just going to explain a bit about how the awards work. So this was last year's. I don't think we've got the new awards document out yet, but we didn't have it last night, but this is what we're doing.
I did find it, Andrew, and it's still the same.
Good. Every competition must have these awards: one for robot design, one for innovation project, and one for core values. 3 separate parts. Right? There is one award in each of those categories. Each team only can ever get one award. So one of the things I say is, hey, you got the robot design award. That's great. You have no idea if you were the best at robot design or whether another team was better, but they got something else. The robot game is separate. The Robot Performance Award goes to the team with the highest score, even if they already have a trophy. So that is possible to get 2 trophies. It's not all that common, but it does happen. The Coach Mentor Award. That is a different one. That is submitted by the kids before an event. They get to write something about you. That's a pretty big deal to get it. That goes to an adult. So the kids have to write something nice. So make sure your kids do that. Make sure they're all put in ahead of time. It's one of the jobs you should do. It's a good thing to include. Now, if your tournament is particularly large, they will give you 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in each of those categories. So the number of trophies handed out are based on a formula that's built on the number of teams that attend your event. Now, there are some optional awards that are given out for, again, larger tournaments, You may or may not see these. So breakthrough is a team that's shot forward in leaps and bounds. Engineering excellence is kind of like a runner-up a champions award on some level. They're a great all-rounder, particularly with regards to design. Rising all-star, it's not just for rookies, it's for someone that the judges see and go, hey, wow, we expect great things from you. And motivate. A team that's, I guess you'd call this the old inspiration award. Someone that does well, particularly with all that stuff about core values and the weird competition that we're in. Now, the Champions Award sits over all of these. It goes to the team with the best all-round ranking in robot game, robot design, innovation project, and core values. So 25% each. So that means where you're standing in the robot game is a score, but it's equal to your score in core values and innovation project and robot design. You don't want to neglect any of those. Now, based on how well you go, based on tournament size as well, a few teams that excel in each of those categories advance. So from a regional, you'll go to a national. I think we still have 4 nationals this year planned, North, South, East, and West. And if you do well at a national, you'll be offered a slot at an international event. Now, what internationals will look like this year, who knows? I'm kind of hoping we'll get another Asia Pacific event, but we'll see how we roll. When it comes to advancement, they use the Champions Award scoring. So all-round score. They'll take those 4 25% weighted values and they will rank you and they will send you through. Now, judging will get harsher as you advance to new levels. So something that might be let slide at a regional will definitely not at a national or an international. So again, make sure you know your rules and make sure that you look at your rubrics that you get back for scoring. Now, we're going to go through those a bit as well. So this one causes grief. Of the number one issue I've had as someone that's run a regional and someone that's been a coach and someone that's been a referee, this is the big thing that people don't get with the robot game. Highest score gets robot performance. Gracious professionalism score is counted in your core values, and your ranking is worth 25% of a team's champion award score. The robot game has no other effect on the competition. So you need to make sure your parents understand that. I'll cover it a bit in a little bit. I'll cover this in a bit, but it is entirely possible to come in second in the robot game and not get a trophy of any kind and not advance. It's also entirely possible to come in fourth in the robot game, get no trophy and advance to the nationals. Okay, it's based on your overall score. The robot game ranking is really the only score people see publicly. So I've had a lot of conversation with parents going, hey, we came in second. Why are we getting nothing? Why are we not advancing? That's why. So we got any questions on that, girls?
No questions
Awesome.
that we can find.
Okay, so this is the judging flowchart. When you go to a tournament, whether it's online or whether it is in person, you will go into the judging session and you will get half an hour with them. 2 minutes to say hello and come in, 5 minutes to do your project, 5 minutes to answer questions, 5 minutes to explain your robot, 5 minutes to answer questions, 3 minutes to reflect on core values, 5 minutes for feedback, and then you go. So we're going to go through that in detail, but that's what your judging session looks like. So this is the part that's a bit more important. You get 30 minutes in that judging session. As you just saw, there are limits on each section. They cover the 3 areas. One set of judges will cover each of those areas, and they'll do it by watching a team and asking questions. They will be following rubrics. After they've scored you on those rubrics, they will meet with all the other judges to deliberate and rank all the teams. And that's when the awards are decided. So one set of judges may see 10 teams, another set of judges may see a different 10. Then they'll come together and they will rank those teams according to the common things in the rubrics. Now, when it comes to results, the deliberations are secret. You will never find out how your team ranked overall. Again, one award only, except for robot performance. And like I said, number one robot may not advance. It happens. Number 2 may get nothing. A team may advance without an award. So you will get your rubrics back, and you'll see how the judges ranked you on that rubric, but you will never know how you went overall. What happens in the judging room stays in the judging room, and it should be something that only the judges ever know. Okay. So we've now done our overview of things in general, and we're about to hop into the project. So we got anything on that one, or should we just dive straight into it, Lundell?
I think we can dive straight into it at this stage.
Okay.
If anyone does have questions, please post it on the Slack channel. The girls are watching that, and we'll...
Someone's asking for something to wait.
Wait, okay, we will wait a
I'm not
second.
sure what for. Someone's just put in the Zoom chat, wait.
Okay. All right, we'll give you a second. We've just had a few more people just join us. So
yeah. So
right.
We have got a few coaches out there, I know, that have been around this for a while. Can I put any of you on the spot?
Will the slide deck or modified component be set?
Can I put any of you on the spot to...
Someone, Andrew,
yeah?
Someone is wondering if the slide deck or a modified version will be posted on the Slack channel.
It will be.
And then someone else is asking, how is the inter-rater between the different judging lanes?
Oh, okay. So when you have 2 judging, they're all using the same rubric, but each set of judges is going to be subjective in their own way. So what judging lane 1 comes up with may not be to the same standard that judging lane 2 is. So what they'll do is they'll rank the teams according to themselves. Then they'll compare those to the others, and they'll say, like, our number 1 robot built a little spike bot and achieved 3 missions. They're awesome. That was the best team we saw. And the other team may have gotten the Mafia from Asia Pacific and had a robot that scores every points on the table with seconds to spare and cover massive engineering things. So obviously the big robot will edge out the other one, and they'll merge them together like that. And one of the things that really helps with that is if your team can just toss in a 1-page summary or something like that to say, so the judges can remember who you are and what you've done. We'll cover that in a little bit. But the point is that the judges will all meet together and they'll massage the teams so that they fit based on what they saw. That's what deliberations are. They'll say, is this team that you saw better than the team I saw? And that can be a rather intense conversation sometimes. Did that answer your question, Ruth?
okay, we ready to move on?
Okay.
All right, you going to change the spotlight, Andrew?
What's wrong?
Are you changing the spotlight? I'm running this one.
Yep. I just have to find you on that huge. Hang on.
I'm near the top. Okay.
You going to take remote control?
Yep. All right, innovation project, more than robots. This is one of the parts that I really enjoy about this, I guess, more than the robots themselves, is seeing where the kids can go with this and what innovation they come up with, what ideas they have. There we go. All right, so this year for the project, the little blurb is, everyone depends on the transportation of goods for their daily needs. As more demands are placed on the transportation systems, we will continue to face challenges unless we find new ways or improve existing ways to transport products from place to place. How can you improve the transportation of products? Now, this we've taken straight from the engineering notebook. This is where you'll find this. And what you need to do, what your team needs to do, is they need to identify a specific problem related to making the transportation journey of products better. So it's very broad, but it does not include animals or people. So it needs to be a product. Your team needs to research your problem and your solution ideas. They need to design and create a new piece of technology, equipment, or a method of transportation that could improve the journey of the products. And they need to share your solution, collect feedback, and iterate on your solution, and then create a creative and effective presentation that communicates your solution at an event. So that's what the innovation project is all about.
Go back a second, Little. So,
yep. What are you doing? Yep.
So that is basically as much as you're going to get in terms of rules. I'm fully expecting them to put out an update in the next week that's defining what a product is. So we're pretty certain that's going to stay not people. And I'm like 80% certain they're not going to do transportation of anything that's alive, but don't quote me on that one. Now, just to clarify, the innovation project does not have to be robotic. Okay.
Yep, about to get to that.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you get your kids to pick a project when it's so open-ended? There are so many things out there that get transported. How do you do it? Well, you can provide guidance, but let the kids pick their project. It is about discovery, not a Shark Tank. Okay, so we want the kids to discover new things, to look into different areas and learn something new.
So hang on, we'll go back here. So when we say not the Shark Tank, we are talking about their idea doesn't have to be a $1 billion startup. It could be something really simple, right? It's about them learning. So when we get into the point of how do we get the team to pick a project? So there is a process that I follow that allows me to do that. And it's reasonably successful. So I am going to stop sharing. Actually, I'll go through this part. So I ask 3 questions. First of all, I ask the kids, what are your hobbies or interests? Then I ask, what are your parents' interests or professions? And then I ask, what's unique about your community? So I'll just come over here now and I will share my Excel sheet, because I do this for every team that we mentor. And it's pretty much down to a fine art at this point. Right. So we'll get some people shouting in on the call if we can here. If we have any kids on the, if we have any team members on the call, do that. Give me, let's have 3 hobbies that your kids or kids do.
So please unmute yourself and call it out.
Minecraft.
Minecraft. Yeah. What else have we got?
Trail bike riding.
Trail bike riding. What was that last one?
Ada said tree climbing.
Someone said Scouts and someone else has said YouTube.
Is YouTube
Okay.
Fortnite.
Soccer.
K-pop dancing, K-pop composition.
Fortnite.
Yep. Let's put that under video games in general. Okay. I've also had in my experience musical instruments. All right, there's a couple from there.
Graphic design.
Yeah.
And also coding. My kids code animated books.
Yep. So what I want to look at for my first cut of this type of questions is what of these could potentially have something to do with transport? Okay, hang on, I got one here. So Minecraft, probably not so much. Trailback riding. Getting bike to the trail. That might work. Getting bike to the buyer. Sure, there'd be something else there, but those are the two that just
Repairing, getting it to repairs.
Yep.
Flat tires.
Yep, there we go.
Thinking to musical instruments would be a good one.
Yeah. So I've now got 3 ideas from that I can say, hey, kids, go research that. Does anything there pique your interest? We had, if we're going to jump into bike riding in general, bike courier safety.
What about bikes on public transport?
There you go.
That's a biggie, particularly on trains even. If you want to go from one place to another to ride and say the national park and stuff.
So there you go. That's just one idea. Tree climbing. Don't know about transporting trees.
Yeah, they do, massive ones.
Yeah. But that also makes me think of how do you get playground equipment to places?
Ooh.
Scouts. I'm a scout leader, by the way, so's Lyndall. We've had our fair share of packing for camp. Is there an issue with transporting camping equipment? Maybe even gas bottles or things that might be dangerous. Soccer, I don't know, dancing, well, stage,
Oh, yeah. Stage sports.
props, musical instruments. I'm actually using this one. I popped that one in myself. How do you transport a piano? If your kids want a heavy engineering project, drop that one on them.
Funny.
Well, there's also, if you're in an orchestra, how do you transport all your equipment without damage? If one of the kids has to bring an instrument to school, can you improve on the way that the carrying solo instruments?
What about things like your sound systems and stuff? Because they also have a massive, massive thing.
Yep.
They move around a lot.
There you go. So you have that conversation with your kids and look for links to transport everything they do. I mean, soccer, you've got to transport a team's worth of gear, soccer balls, uniforms. Could be a bunch of stuff in that. But if it's a sport, I imagine there's a whole bunch of things that are difficult to transport depending on the sport you do. Okay, then we get to the parents. What are your parents or grandparents or uncles or cousins or siblings? What are their careers or interests? So I actually had a conversation with one of the kids last week. Their dad is a playground designer. That's his profession. And they all immediately leapt on that as, yeah, we want to know all about this. And that was instantly their project. They're going to look at it
Paramedic
as,
is in the chat.
sorry,
Someone's put paramedic in the chat.
paramedic. Yep.
We had a dad come in this week to talk about his stuff. He's a distiller, and as it turns out, an engineer as well, but he's a distiller. That
There
was
we
the
go.
context he was talking about.
Yep. Anyone else got anything interesting parental?
Dragon boat races.
There you go. I'm getting some
I
good
imagine
ones.
that would be hard to transport a dragon boat.
Yeah, exactly.
On boats, have you ever been in Scouts and had to do a canoe trip?
I was thinking.
What was that one? I missed that one.
I was thinking that getting them on and off vehicles and stuff like that.
Yep. So paramedics, well, patients don't count as a product, but medical supplies definitely would, which then leads you into a whole bunch of other stuff.
There's some really topical stuff around getting vaccines to remote areas, particularly with regard to
Yep.
the bulk of COVID stuff.
Yep. Right, distiller. We're still doing stuff in barrels?
No, not particularly, but they did
No.
talk a lot about getting the product, so international products into Australia,
Well, there you go. That's a good one. International stuff. Yep.
then getting the bottles out to people, which is a fragile item.
Yep. Well, we all know dragon boat. Yeah. Transport. How do you transport a dragon boat safely? How do you get canoes? Yep. You get the general idea.
Andrew, one of the things which I'd also like to get your views on, one of the things our distiller raised wasn't so much about the transport itself. It's just that one of the things that his clients are asking for, because he does organic stuff,
Yep.
is looking for low carbon transport options.
Yep.
So would focusing on a low carbon rather than on the goods themselves, but a different way of transporting something, is that, do you think, within scope?
Definitely. So what they're doing, if I won't put it back up at the moment, but the project was, how do you improve the transportation of products? It's not about necessarily the product that's transported, it's about how do you make that process better. So a lower carbon footprint, transport safety, right? I just saw something pop up on Slack from Monique. Move recycling from around the school to one main location. Definitely. It's still transport. It doesn't matter whether it's 100 meters or 100 kilometers, it's still transport. So combating driver fatigue would fit under making transport better. Avoiding roadkill, better fuel efficiency. All those things fit under all that. Does that make sense? So the last thing I do is I then go to community. What is unique about the community you're in? What advantages does it have? So if you're in a rural community, very different to an urban one. Have we got anyone here from a place that has difficulty being driven to?
I'm not, but as it turns out, I have work colleagues who actually work in this field.
Yep.
And for them, it's just a simple matter of how the hell do we get fresh fruit and vegetables to very remote communities.
There you go.
And that included islands like Christmas and Cocos Islands. They're part of my department's remit.
Yeah, beautiful. That'd be an ideal question to tackle. there are some places that have a lot of really hilly, windy roads to get to. I mean, you've all seen trucks. I said people in our area would be very familiar with the sight of a truck getting stuck on Macquarie Pass or Bulli Pass. Living on a mountain, only a couple of ways in or out. How do you deal with that? How do you make sure you can get to a place even when it's cut off by flood or the road's blocked? And by the end of that conversation, which has probably taken us about 10 minutes, you have a huge, huge amount of possible places to look at. We haven't even hit everybody yet. So we have that list. And then what I do is, depending on how many kids we've got and depending on how many kids that you've got and depending on how interested there are, I'll say, okay, guys, every one of you pick one of these things, come back to me next week with a couple of paragraphs on research you've done about it.
Someone's also said transport in times of disasters.
Oh, definitely. Whoops. Typo. Or what I'll do, if we've got a huge amount, I'll say vote. Every child gets 2 votes. Pick which ones you want. And then I'll pick the top 3. So we might have 3 votes in bike couriers, 2 in that, and 10 that want to play with dragon boats. Go nuts. Start with that, keep your list like this. And then the judges want to know about ideas you've had that the kids didn't necessarily follow through on. So this is just a good thing to save and keep and use later on. So are there any questions on that process?
None yet.
None yet? Awesome. So before we just skip onto the project slides again, now we don't mention this time around because it's in the community conference video. But when it comes to picking a project, there's a couple of things. We have what we call the unofficial rules of picking project. I suggest you go check them out on the video, but there's a couple of top ones to remember. The first one that we always go for is look for a niche idea, because and avoid something that you know everybody is going to be doing, because it can be very disheartening to rock up to a tournament and have 6 teams working on the exact same problem you are, and 3 of them have got the exact same solution. Right? It can be demoralizing. So for animal allies, there was a bunch of how do animals and humans work together, and roadkill, well, avoiding roadkill was going to be a very, very common topic, because I think it was one of the missions on the board. How do vehicles not hit animals? So one of the ideas that was looked at by one of our teams, they went and talked to researchers that worked with Tasmanian devils. And in the course of the conversation, they found out that Tasmanian devils that had been rehabilitated and released back into the wild had massive roadkill issues because they weren't afraid of vehicles anymore. So the broad-ranging idea of how do we stop roadkill got narrowed down to how do we protect Tasmanian devils who have been recently released back into the wild. And that was a very unique, very niche project that they could really get into, and nobody else came up with it. So that's my first bit of advice. Find a niche that works for your team, solve that problem, then see if it's expandable to other areas. The second one is my all-time favorite, rocket-powered wheelchairs are cool. That was something from Body Forward. The idea doesn't have to be sensible, as long as they treat it seriously. So if you're going to invent a rocket-powered wheelchair as your project this year, make sure you include aerodynamics, fuel source, and safety, and then let them go for it. Who knows, they may come up, they may actually surprise you. So I am now going to go back to sharing those slides, and Lyndall's going to run through how the project judging works. Take control and go for it.
Okay, so with the project judging side of things, we are looking at this 10-minute section of the whole 30 minutes. So they've only got 10 minutes in that, and that's divided into two sections, presentation and question and answer time. So the presentation is the time for the kids to present their idea, their work, their innovation to the judges in any way they want to. They can do a song, they can do a dance, they can do a skit, they can just do a PowerPoint, they can do whatever they want. And then they have 5 minutes of question time from the judge. Now, everyone needs to be involved in the presentation in some way. And we know that some kids really don't like talking, but maybe they could hold a poster up or operate the slideshow. Somehow, everyone needs to be involved. Now, in that 10-minute time, if you have got to do a lot of setup, that's going to count against the time that they have to present their information to the judges. You want to try and get them to not waste a single second. 5 minutes might seem like a long time, but sometimes it's really hard to get everything in that 5 minutes. Coaches can accompany the team but cannot speak, help, or participate in any way. So coaches, you can't go carrying in all the bits and pieces for them. The kids need to do it themselves. So if you've got a team of 5 kids, you work out who's going to carry what bits and who's going to set it up, and practice it before you get to the competition. Practice those things, almost choreograph how they're going to walk in the room, set up and present themselves to the judges.
Yeah,
so we have a rubric.
Lyndall, pull
and
back
so
a second. Go back. So, yep, there we go.
Yep.
So on that one too, guys, is anyone got any questions on that particular process? Now we have there's an example presentation up on the conference video if you want to check it out. But the presentation and the project is often a cause of a great deal of angst. So has anyone got any questions so far on that before we go into the rubrics themselves?
There haven't been any posted so far.
Sweet.
Okay. So when we're looking at presenting our project, we're looking at the rubric and what the judges are looking for. You want to give the judges the information that they're looking for. So a rubric has ratings from beginning to exceeds. It has the different categories. And then you will get back some comments from the judges at the end as well. So the first part that the judges are really interested in is identifying your problem. So we have these two sections here in identify. It's the defining the problem. So you want to be able to have a clear definition of the problem. So making sure the judges understand what it is that the kids have looked at in the first couple of seconds of their presentation is really good. If the judges have to try and guess what it is because it's taken them 3 minutes to tell them all about the problem, that's probably not the best, probably not going to be very clear. Also, this is slight change from last year too. This rubric has changed. So please make sure if you looked at it last year, look, it has changed this year, just some slight wording. So in the terms of research, they want to see detailed research from a variety of sources. So we want to encourage the kids not just to use good old Google, Wikipedia or things like that, but actually go and talk to professionals, have a Zoom meeting, do an email, those sorts of things with professionals, find videos to look at. Is there a book in the library that they can read up that has something about this topic? And then they need to be able to tell the judges about how they've done their research or what they've used to research.
Now, can I just jump in there too? Can you all see at the top there, there are the 4 ratings: beginning, developing, accomplished, and exceeds. That's basically the score. So if you're a rookie team, on average, they're expecting you to get a 1 or a 2 maybe. If you're a veteran team, a 2 or a 3, right? If you get anything above those, then that's an excuse for a party. If you ever get a 4, that's a serious excuse for a celebration. It means your kids wowed the judges, and the judges took the time out to actually note how they were exceptional. So if you get a rubric back with even a single 4 selected, that's a high praise to your kids. Make sure they understand that.
Okay, so the next thing is about the design. So the team generated innovative ideas independently before selecting and planning which one to develop. So as we just went through, having evidence of an inclusive selection process. So how did you come up with your project? What sort of process did you go to get it? Was it just somebody's idea and everyone voted on it? Or how did everyone have a say and look at research, and then you decided as a group? How did you do that? And then planning, right? How did you plan the design of your innovation for your project? What was the process you took? And there needs to be clear evidence of those to score high. Then there's the whole creating. So they want you to develop an original idea or build an existing one with the prototype model or drawing to represent your solution. So the judges want to see something, whether it's a tech drawing, a drawing that the kids have just done up, or they've made a model, could be out of Lego, could be out of cardboard, plasticine, model making kits, whatever, something to represent their solution. They are looking for a clear development of it. So how well did they develop their idea? How far did they take their idea, right? And how is their idea represented? Is there a lot of detail in it? Have they done some sort of technical drawing for it, or built a working model with some electronic bits that actually they press a button and it shows a light because this is how it works? Those sorts of things. How much thought and detail have they put into it?
I'll jump in there on that one too. One thing, you are not going to get points for having money. So if you get if you get a particular team that has the funding to actually produce a functional prototype versus kids that have just produced an actual design with that level of detail, they will score the same. Bear in mind, though, a functional prototype will have a lot of detail built into it. If you're going to compete with that with just a diagram or a model, a diagram or a tech drawing or something, it's going to need to have the same level of detail. So don't feel you have to run out and purchase a 3D printer to produce a copy of what the kids have designed. A technical drawing or a CAD model will be perfectly sufficient.
Also, last year, our team was doing stuff with wheelchairs. So we went and visited our local tip and found some old wheelchairs that they were able to pull apart and do stuff with. And I think it cost me like $10 for the 2 wheelchairs. So it wasn't an expensive thing, but they were able to make a functional prototype for their idea.
Yep, junkyards are fun.
Kids love them. All right, iterate. So sharing their ideas, collect feedback, and include improvements in their solution. So we have 2 sections again here. So what we are aiming for is sharing the solution with the user and professional. So that's slightly different to what they had there previously. So basically, they're looking for you to share with who's going to use your product, who's going to be transporting this thing. Can you share their idea with that person and a professional? Now, maybe the same person, or in which case, try and go to multiple professionals. and get feedback on it. And then how have they improved on their solution with their feedback? Don't leave the sharing part till, the week before competition. We've got our idea and now we're sharing it. Make sure you share it throughout the season so that you can get feedback. Is that a question? No. Okay. All right. And the last part is communicate. Now, this is about how they present it. So the team shared a creative and effective presentation of their current solution and its impact on their users. So was their presentation engaging, and does the solution have potential impact on others? And is that clearly shown with what they've done? So that's what the judges are looking for in that 10 minutes that they're the team's presenting their information and they've got questions being asked. All right.
Yeah.
One thing to, sorry, was that in?
Keep going. Yep.
Yep. So one thing that's you should try and do throughout the season is keep documentation. So records of their how they chose their idea, records of this is our starting point of our idea. This is how, we went and spoke to this professional. This is the feedback we got. And then, this is what we've done. Sort of almost like an engineering journal of their project alongside doing their robot. So a basic thing they could do is have a one-page handout that they can give to the judges with a team photo, logo, a summary of their problem, a summary of their solution, a picture or drawing, a photo of their model, whatever. And that's just something for the judges. Or you can do, list of your research and professionals and sharing. So those are just the basic things to hand to the judges so they remember who you are. And then the other thing you can do is like what we do is we work very comprehensively, but our logbooks are probably overkill for most teams. We often end up with hundreds of pages because we're a homeschool team, so a lot of our research work goes into their schoolwork, but we are also going to an international standard with what we do. So it's up to the kids on how much they want to do and put together. For the judges, you can do a very basic one-page summary pamphlet flyer that the judges can keep, or you can go into a lot of detail. Now, with a logbook like we do, chances are the judges are not going to have time to look at it or do much with it, but it's something that they can flip through, and at an in-person event, they can share that documentation with the other judges in deliberation. All right, so before we move on, is there any questions about the project?
I'm just going to skip back to the summary page. Right. So if you're not got access to Slack, that's fine. But if you want to ask a verbal question now, that'd be a real good time. So any questions on picking a project, doing a presentation, or anything along those lines?
Can I just ask a quick question about the team and doing the presentation on the project?
Yep.
So previously we had our sort of large team, and they split into groups. So we had one group working on the robot side of things, and then we had a separate group within the team working on the project. Would the whole team need to be seen to be involved in the project and in the final presentation? Absolutely, in the presentation. And yes, they should be aware or have some input into the project, so everyone can. You can have your main project people, but as long as everybody's been involved in some way, in the process, some way, everyone knows what the project's about. You don't turn up to the judging and you have Fred say, but I didn't decide on that, or
What we do is, yeah, go
we
on then.
have been in the rare situation that a judge may ask a child directly for a question about the project or the robot in the judging. That doesn't happen often, but occasionally judges will say, okay, I've heard enough from everyone. I haven't heard anything from this child. Can you answer this question? So it's really good that they all know everything about everything.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, there are a couple of roles in that make it easy. So we do have kids in our teams quite often that they love the project, but not interested at all in the robot, and vice versa. So for the kids that don't really care too much about the project, we make them researchers. Their job is to go and research a topic and turn in information. And then the project lead people, they take that information and use it. And then the researchers are involved, but they're not having to be across everything in the same way. If you're not liking the robot much and love the project, then we make them mission designer or strategy. Their job is to analyze one particular mission, be familiar with how it works, suggest how it goes in and things like that. So there are ways to keep the kids involved in an area they may not be interested in, and in a way that means they can still explore the things they like. Does that make sense?
That's great. Yeah, that's really useful. Thank you.
Yeah.
There was a question put on the Slack asking if it is an extensive logbook, are they reviewed in the judging session? And if so, how long is spent on that?
So in a judging session, you will be lucky to have a judge spend 30 seconds looking through your entire logbook. They may pick a page at random. They may just go, hey, have a look at this, and the other judge will flick through it. They don't have a lot of time to read extensively. So like Lyndall said, our huge logbooks are more about the kids for their schooling and their benefit as an aid to memory. Because if you get to a regional, most of them won't remember what they were doing 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah. And then an international can be, 8 months from where you started or more. And they can't remember what they did back in August when they're competing in June.
I also put a comment in Slack saying, look, one of the big deals, so as a judge or as someone who's done some judging, I know that you don't have a lot of time. And so if you can, one of the thoughts I had about this when I was last doing judging was to try and include either in background through a presentation, whatever presentation it is, like that 1-page summary, even as a poster, or try and include it in the slide somehow so that it's there and that people can go, oh, hang on, they've done that, just to see it. Because the other issue is that some judges will look at background materials and others won't. Whereas if you bring it up in the presentation, even as part of a background of a slide system or background, some kids got it behind their head whilst they're doing their Zoom presentation, then all the judges have had it as reference, and so they can all include it. Because it's one of the things that I noticed that judges do and don't include at times to kind of help prioritize one team over another, or to see something, because you have to be able to see during that judging time what it is that the team's done. So that 1-page summary can be really effective, even as a background.
Yep. I will definitely add +1 to that.
So Andrew, we've just had a question on the Slack. With the unknown of how COVID will affect the comp at this rate, how do we go about starting this project and putting it together?
Okay, so I'll recommend again, go look at the community conference video, in particularly the unofficial rules of the project. There's some really good general directives there, but how I would approach it given COVID uncertainty is something like this. We will tackle this also in remote team management later on. So start now identifying people you want to talk to and set up phone calls or Zoom calls with them. The odds of you getting a meeting are going to be physical meeting are going to be quite low in some areas. So you're going to need to rely on that. When it comes to developing your presentation, developing your product, some type of shared cloud storage is going to be essential. So a Google Drive, Google Classroom, Slack, Fleep, Trello, pick your platform, and have the kids collaborate on that.
A lot of kids are using Teams through school, so they'll
Yep.
already have stuff like that. So you can use the Google Plus Teams, peeps.
Definitely.
Someone has.
Yeah.
someone
So
has
when you
asked-
get to the presentation, be prepared to give that presentation over a video link. So you can record some, you can have some video elements in your presentation, but I don't recommend it because it's the judges are after live where possible.
However,
Yep.
However, that said, video can form part of the presentation, definitely. And I know from the international, we had teams that did have bits of video showing working prototypes and things like that. So just don't rely on the whole thing being a video.
Yeah.
And think about when you're doing your presentation, think about what platform you're going to be presenting it. Presenting a live presentation versus a presentation online can be very different.
So it may be something as simple as find yourself a space where a camera can see all your kids, get a decent microphone, and have the kids practice presenting in front of the camera, or have the kids practice presenting live. You should know with a reasonable amount of time if the event is going to run. Sorry, start again. Some events they'll make a call it's going to be remote from the beginning, and you'll know. But even if it is going to be live, you do have to face the possibility of them shifting to remote at short notice. So get them used to presenting on a camera.
Andrew, can I throw a couple of comments in?
Go for it.
We were privileged to be involved in APOC, which was totally remote event. And being in Sydney and in lockdown, we weren't able to get our kids together. So we presented our project from about 10 different locations as the kids were all in their own homes. And one of the things we did do, we were invited to do submit a video of our project that would be able to be viewed by other teams. And in doing that recording, I said to the kids the night we were doing it, I said, right, we're going to do one run through because I know you're going to botch it up. And then we'll have a quick break and we'll do a second run through. And having watched them do that first run through, we had kids sitting on spinning chairs. We had kids with virtual backgrounds that were moving arms, and so arms and heads and things were going in and out of the picture. So practice it and record it, and then get your kids to watch it because it's really illuminating to them. One of the kids said, I thought the judges would just be looking at the person that was presenting. And I said, you can't assume that. So it's make sure that if you're doing it virtually, and I'm assuming that every competition in Sydney is going to be virtual totally, practice it, record it, watch it, give them tips on how to improve it, redo it, and you may need to redo it 2 or 3 times before they get that full process down pat.
Yeah, don't leave it to the last minute to get them practicing.
I would recommend recording it even if they are going to do live, because nothing shows kids how silly they look bouncing around and staring at the ceiling than seeing them do it on camera.
Someone's asked a question. In lockdown, can children present innovation ideas over Meet/Teams meeting recording from their respective locations if they can't meet and make a video?
Okay, so you're talking about in a tournament, or are you talking about during team meetings?
I'm not sure. If you want to have a look at the question, it's in the Zoom chat.
Okay.
Also, someone was asking if they can give an example of how they use the video in the background of the presentation.
Okay, so I'll do the first one first. It's going to answer the question about can you present over Meet Teams, right, from the locations. Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, at a tournament, there we go. Thank you. Yes, it is possible. It'll come down to you talking to the tournament organizer and figuring those things out. But the rules are pretty clear on that one. So a remote event will have them do the whole thing over video. So recording. Yeah, so yeah, it's definitely possible. It does come down to the individual situation. So if you're not sure about how a particular situation will wear out, have a chat to Winona and she'll guide you in the way through that. As to the other one, the example.
Ruth was wanting to give an example.
Yep, go for it, Ruth. And I'll stop
Actually,
my screen sharing. You want to share a screen or just want to talk?
No. What I was thinking is that I know as a judge, I've seen a really good example of how this was used, but I need to check with the team. I know they've released it publicly before through the APOC stuff, but I do need to check with them first. So it'll be more like I need to check with them and see that sort of stuff. I'm sure they'll say yes, but and I think you'll know who they are anyway. So, but I will check that with them. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. So, but keep your eye on this for later because seriously, their presentation was great with it. So, thank you.
So what my team has done, so while they were, the wheelchair one that Linda was mentioning earlier, so they filmed some footage of their wheelchair prototype. It was a wheelchair that could ice skate. So what they did was they built their prototype, took it to an ice rink and tested it. So during the course of their presentation, they put a couple of seconds footage of the wheelchair being used in their PowerPoint presentation. And that was running while they were giving their presentation. So here we went there, we tested it, the video kicks off and they just kept talking using the video as a enhancement for what they were saying. Did that answer the question? Whoever asked that one?
The next question is, seeing as the innovation project and the robot design are two separate aspects of the judging, is it better to split into sub-teams and have one group present each part of it?
No. It is best to have the whole team present both. Now, if you have the project gurus only want to have a minor role in robot presentation, go nuts. Keep it minimal involvement. They don't have to say a lot and you can have other people expounding on the beauties of their code or how this particular mechanism works well. For the project, you can have people gushing about this particular detail, how they got there, and others can just keep this involvement simple. But you want to have everybody involved in both. You don't want to have anybody standing back. Now, that said, if you have a team with kids that are, well, for various reasons, may not be able to participate in that way, what we do, we get that all the time. What we do is we write a short note to the judges ahead of time, give it to the tournament organizers and say, hey, this is Jack. He will not be talking and this is the reason why. His teammates will assist him. Make sure the judges are aware of it. So there's ways and means of getting around it. So in general, you want to make sure your whole team can talk about everything, but in individual cases, there's leeway. Is there another question? Yep. Did I answer that question sufficiently?
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
No worries.
Someone is asking if they can suggest to prepare for technology to crash, because during their national, their computer crashed and they had to have the whole team sit around an iPhone and were unable to present their PowerPoint.
Oh, yes. If anything can go wrong, it will go wrong and at the worst possible time.
Hey, my internet just dropped out a second ago, so.
Yeah, definitely. this is something that will happen to you at some point during your first career. Occasionally when the kids are practicing, I'll throw a curveball at them. Hey, your technology doesn't work. What are you going to do? So if you're going to run off that proverbial Zoom phone, run off the iPhone, well, just make sure they can see the screen behind them or something like that. Or we normally make a point of putting the slideshow in our project log in the first place. So you can say something like, hey, turn to this page and you'll see the slides that would otherwise be working. Go for it. Of course.
On that note, most virtual competitions will have a folder for you to upload documentation for the judges to as well.
Yeah. Of course, there is always the merits of going old school. I've met a couple of teams who refuse to use PowerPoint because it could fall over, and they'll produce an actual flip chart. Laminated posters that they'll move through during the course of the presentation. Technology can't sabotage you if you're not using it. Thanks, Jacob. That was a really good point. Okay, any other questions on that one, or do you all feel equipped to start looking and developing projects? Okay, well, sorry, was that someone?
No, I think we're okay.
Okay, so I will say again, go take a look at the community conference, particularly the unofficial rules of the project. It's designed to be a funnish way to present what the project should be to the kids, right? Not just a list of bullet points and rules and stuff, but it's a way to introduce fun and engagement into it. So check it out. It may be useful. If you've got any questions, post them here. Okay, so back to the presentation. We have now dealt with the project rubric and the documentation, and now we're
you got too far.
Robot design.
Robot design.
Okay, so just to be clear, in robot design, there's no table to show how your robot performs. This is a close look at what your robot can do, how it's built, and how you got there, how it works. So that is this slot. Immediately after the project comes the robot design. So logistically, when you go into that project room, if it is an in-person one, you need to bring in with you everything you need for project, everything you need for robot. And it needs to be arranged in such a way as the kids can switch between sections easily. If you are at home doing remote judging, I would strongly suggest having your robot stuff set up next to your project stuff, and all you got to do is turn the camera around or switch cameras, and you're moving to different things. Don't waste a lot of time switching. If you're using costumes in your innovation project, don't bother changing out of them. Every second counts for this, and you want to make sure that you use them all. So in robot design, it might be obvious, but we're saying it. They're showing off the design of the robot and the process that led them there. So you should demonstrate how your attachments move and operate, or demonstrate how your robot's functions move and operate. You should be able to describe your code, your documentation, the development process. Make a point of describing failures while you're at it. We make a point of telling the kids, we'll keep prototypes sometimes, or take pictures of them and show the judges, these are the versions that led up to this particular thing. And you will answer questions. So the judges will ask for more information. Now, if it's a face-to-face event, there will be coaches in the room, but they cannot speak, help, or participate in any way. So don't expect to be able to help the kids pack up or carry stuff in or unload. And definitely do not prompt a child or in any way interfere. So we've sort of gotten into the habit of just looking down at the ground very intently. Now, there are a few things to look at on how you do this, which we'll get through. But do bear in mind that not every judge is going to be a robot expert. So it's well worth practicing explaining your robot to somebody that might have absolutely no idea about what a robot is. The judges will have some knowledge, but doing that will help you identify things where you might confuse someone. Right, so this is the robot design rubric. Same type of deal as the project rubric. And
Again, there's been some slight changes from last year's rubric to this year's.
Yep, so I'll get you to point those out to me on each section if you could, Lyndall.
Yep.
Yep. And again, you should be aiming for the accomplished column. That's my suggestion, to tell you what your team should be doing. Right? If you can pull that off, that's great. But that's sort of like the ideal. That's what you should be aiming for. So then we get to identify, kind of the same deal as project. We identify the strategy and we build skills and you show it. So in strategy, they're after a clear mission strategy, not a partially clear or unclear. They want to know what your strategy was. Doesn't matter how good the strategy is. It could be we did the same 3 missions every time and it worked every time. That's it. How did you get there? Why did you do that? Pretty simple. Evidence of building and coding skills in all team members. That's what they want. They want to see that everybody was engaged in some way.
So your veterans need to be building on their skills as well as your rookies. Your rookies are obviously going to be learning lots of skills, but your veterans may have to work a little bit harder to learn something new.
Yeah. I sort of say that what one common complaint or observation people will make in this event, you have 9-year-olds competing against 16-year-olds. That's not fair. Well, in some way, the level playing field is kind of baked in places like this. A team of 16-year-olds is going to have, when it gets to the learning aspect, is going to have to show the new things they develop. They're going to have to keep reaching for new things. Whereas a bunch of 9-year-olds can say, we've never programmed before, look what we did, and still score quite well. So the key words here we're looking at are clear for the mission strategy and consistent evidence of the skills. So in your presentation, in robot design, you should explain these 2 things. Then we get to the design plan. Do you have a work plan? A work plan can be something as simple as, we decided we want to do this mission. We set about this as prototyping. We then iterated through it till we got something that worked. We tested it. We went back to the prototypes. We tested it again, that type of thing. And are you able to explain Robot and Code's innovative features? So what do your kids think is innovative? What's cool? What's interesting? It could be a particular mission. It could be a particular function. It could be anything. Last year, I had one, replay. I had one child whose main job with the robot was to find a way to, without using motors, deliver a cube to the basketball hoop. And that was his thing. And he spent a lot of time on that, getting it as perfect as possible. And he could segue for hours on that if you let him. And he understood it. He had version after version. He was trying. And that was his thing. And it was a really good thing for him to talk to the judges about. Only don't let him take 10 minutes to do it. When it comes to clear explanation, I practice keeping it short. definitely. I say if you can't explain it in 20 seconds, then you need to go back and practice explaining it in less time than that. Then we have the creation. So this is about the effective robot and code. Right, so the first bit, you have limited, simple, or detailed explanation of the robot, its attachments and sensors. So spend some time explaining what the robot does. And then explaining how the code makes it work. Now, in the old days, you used to be able to show your code because everybody used EV3G and people could understand it. Now you can code any way you want. So it's entirely possible the judge will not be able to understand or read the code you show. So your kids have to be able to explain how it works without relying on the judge being able to read the code. That's an important caveat to bear in mind. And again, we have unclear, partially clear, and clear. So get them to practice on somebody that doesn't know robots to explain how the code works.
So also make sure that you are explaining these things. I've been in so many judging sessions where the kids haven't told us anything about the code. So it's really hard as a judge to give them the mark that they probably deserve, but they just haven't told us.
Right, then iterate. So this is about the engineering process. Do they test their code? Do they test their robot? So Project Bucephalus keeps a log of their tests. So he's got an Excel spreadsheet and we divide each mission up by task and we put a yes or no, did the robot do it? And we probably start keeping that once we get our first mission that's working. Well, we won't do it for prototypes necessarily, but once we've got this could work for our competition, we'll start logging it. And then we'll show those logs to the judges. This is how our thing improved over time. We made this change. Look how much our performance changed. So your kids could just say, look, here's some photos of us testing. So that's part one. We did test. Part two is the improvement, right? What did you change based on your testing? So that's the iteration side. We didn't just get it all right the first go and then accept it. This thing went wrong 40% of the time. We made this change. It's now working 80% of the time. So I do recommend keeping a change log of some description, even if it's just a one sentence. Today we did this at the end of each session. That works. Photos are also really good. If you don't want to write anything, go through with your phone and snap pictures of what the robot is up to every half hour or so during a team meeting, if you've got one. We'll get the kids to take photos periodically just so you can keep a record of how things changed.
Oh, photos of things are so important. I've had a team who they dropped things on the way out of the team meeting that wasn't a permanent place and everything smashed to pieces. And because we'd taken a photo 5 minutes before, they were able to put everything back how it was. So photos are very important.
Yep.
I think we also helped a team at an event who left a mission attachment behind.
Yep.
And they were able to build it off their photo.
Right, and then it's communicate. So this is about the actual presentation of the robot design. Is it unclear, partially clear, or clear explanation of the robot design process? Okay. They're asking about the engineering process here. The brainstorm, the prototype, the test, the iterate, the constant development. How did we get there? How did we get where we are? They want to see that. Then we get to the all team members were involved. Minimal, partial, or clear evidence. So there doesn't extend that there does not say how much they were involved, just that they were. So my child for replay, whose robot job was one single mission, that was all he could handle. That was his thing, and that's great. That's all they needed to see, that level of engagement, as opposed to a child that maybe the lead robot designer had their fingers in everything. So everybody's involved. So again, clear definition, show how each team member was involved. Okay, now, before we take questions on that, I'm just going to skip through to something that the old timers may know. The RDES, the Robot Design Executive Summary. Now, if you go Google that for FLL, you will find a bunch of templates online. And that's basically an outline of the robot presentation. Now, the ones out there, the rubrics have changed since they first came out, but if you have a look, it can give you an example. So the RDS is basically a speech template, a format, right? It is not a requirement for Australian competition, but it is very, very useful for getting your teams through the robot design session without a freak out. Okay? And bear in mind, when you're presenting robot design, all you have to do is read from a piece of paper. There's no need to memorize anything or put on any kind of show. Kids can if they want to, but you want to make sure the show does not get in the way of the content. And remember the time limit though. I said, I've got some kids that will quite happily riff for 10, 15, 20 minutes on one particular function. So you want to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, just jumping back to the project presentation, same type of story. They don't have to read from a piece of paper. They don't have to memorize something, but it does look good if they have. So play it out from there. But this one, there is no need for any type of show. So this is what our typical RDS outline will look like. We'll start with some robot facts. This is our robot named Fred. It uses these sensors. It's programmed in this. It can do this. Something about the fun in the design. Something about how we did our design strategy. How we got to where we are, the process. So looking at that, I'll say, this is like the robot name could be fun, or the design, or something along those lines. Strategy. Our strategy was built around reaching these places on the board and doing these missions. So our strategy was we wanted to succeed 90% of the time in every mission we did. So we chose the ones that we knew we could do. Or we did a point analysis, time taken to get there versus the points of reward, and that's how we chose. So however you want to do that. The design process. We started with a prototype. Everyone tested one model, came up with a mechanism, then we combined them, then we tested them, then we went back and redid it. Mechanical design is about you showing off how the mechanisms work. So if it's a remote event, you take your robot or your attachment, hold it up to the camera and say, hey, look, this is how this particular function works. I slide this up and down and this happens. Programming, remember, you're not actually showing, you don't need to show the actual code unless you want to show off something particularly complicated. You want to describe how that programming works. What is innovative? Right? What is the really, I say this to kids, what's the coolest part of your robot? What's the most special part? And everyone will have something. Then we get to the demonstration. So we touch on it a little bit in mechanical, but in demonstration, we'll say, right, 3 or 4 kids, how much time's left? You've got 10 to 20 seconds to pull that robot up in front of the camera and show it doing this. Move it by hand, no code, just make it work, get into the nitty gritty. And that's the end of the design. That's the end of the RDES. Have some fun, show something, the facts, some fun, the strategy, the process, the mechanical design, the programming, the innovation, and then here's how it functions. Now, important point. There is no need to describe every detail. Choose the highlights. Do not bury the judges in a constant stream of information they cannot possibly process. Pick and choose the things you think you need to tell them about. And then give them the documentation. So this is the engineering notebook. You can use yourself or you can do your own. So as Ruth said, a one-pager is probably all you need, but more is better for this one. So a team name or logo, robot design summary. So I take pictures of the team as they develop. So I'll just, at the end of the season, I'll just go through my pictures folder and then just paste them all into a table, going by month, showing what the progress was. And that covers the project and the design. I might print the code or I might not. I'm conscious of not trying to kill too many trees, but if it's an electronic copy, then it doesn't matter. Highlights of innovations and the challenges or lessons that you overcame. So the notebook does provide a template for that one. So if you're going to spend time on documentation, I think robot design is probably the place where it's done best, because there's so many little things that the judges won't know about unless you show them. And if they're going into a judging session, it's like, how did this team describe the engineering process? And you've got it written down, and they can flick to it and go, yeah, they did that. So that's useful. Now the notebook does provide a template. So that is the contents of our robot logbook. Same type of thing is what Lyndall said, though. That's overkill for most people. But we'll put in stuff that's innovative. We'll include the picture logs. And we'll mention code and particular functions that were written. Okay. So I just skip back to, let's skip back to the rubric. Okay, so do we have any questions on the robot design session?
Well, we have a question. If it's a remote event and the presentation occurs at separate locations, such as the kids' homes, can coaches stage manage their use of technology, e.g. queuing their turn to speak, coming from coaches of rookie team of mostly 9 and 10-year-olds?
Okay. That's a slightly complicated one. I will say it's better if you don't. Right? You might get away with it, but it's not a great idea. I would practice like crazy so they don't need it. But doing things like pointing cameras for them or stuff like that, that's fine. Having one of the kids on the Zoom call highlighting or spotlighting team members, get them to practice doing it. But stuff like that, I'd say if you're helping behind the scenes, that may not be such a huge deal. But if you're giving any verbal instructions or anything like that, that's a really bad idea.
There's some questions in the chat about how you get the engineering book, and is there a specific template that needs to be followed? Okay. I'm not sure if someone replied to it saying you can access it from your dashboard.
Yeah, engineering notebook is on the dashboard. The specific template, no, it is a suggested template. You can do whatever the heck you want.
It's a good, as I say, it's a good idea to look at the rubric and follow that as a guide.
Yeah.
As well. That's what the judges are judging the team on, so that's what they want to hear. So there's no point in talking about a whole lot of stuff that isn't relevant.
Yeah. So Evan and Georgie, did I answer your one properly?
Yeah, I think we were just highlighting the challenge of the situation. You know, yeah.
I would, if it was me, I would be making the kids practice, like stage manage the practice.
Yeah.
And
And
Yeah.
there is a couple of kids who are in year 5, and I guess that would be the sort of gracious professionalism and them sort of helping the 3rd grade kids during the session, or making sure that all the kids had their say. If the kids were doing it themselves within the session, that would go more smoothly, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd actually be surprised at how well kids pick up technology. And once they've had a bit of practice with it, they sometimes can run rings around us adults.
Yeah. Now, that said, there have been a few times with the remote, particularly with FRC, where something's gone horribly, horribly wrong and the kids are panicking. So I will maybe say, excuse me, Judge, they cannot, we've lost the internet connection. We cannot hear what you're saying. As like a fire break for something happening. But by and large, the kids should be able to do it. The kids should do it themselves. Okay. Is there any other questions up there, Georgie?
No, that's good. Thank you for that. Thanks. Yeah.
But Faith and Georgie, have we got anything?
There are no questions in the Slack channel.
Did I see something about dashboards pop up?
Yes.
Yes.
So someone has highlighted that there's 2 dashboards. So I guess we should be a bit more clearer. The engineering notebook will be on your First Australia dashboard where your team is registered for your event. There is a link there. On that will also be a link to the firstinspires.org dashboard, which is where you will find all the competition information.
Yeah. My First Inspires, we have nothing to do with that. Firstinspires.org, that's American. You will not, unless you ever get to go to a world festival, that there's nothing that site will offer you as an FLL.
All right. Sure. Okay. So for the context of this discussion, First Australia.systems is what we are referring, right?
So I didn't understand that.
No, sorry. So I was just asking, so all we want to refer in terms of dashboard is the First Australia.systems dashboard.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I believe that's everything, is it?
I think so at this stage.
Okay, so I will say one last thing on the robot design stuff. Do not leave it to the last minute. We've been guilty of that in the past. Don't be the night before competition and go, hey, we're going to practice our robot design presentation now. That's a good way for things to go horribly, horribly, horribly wrong, particularly with managing time. So get them on that early and go from there. All righty. So what is the times? We've got half an hour left. I think core values is the last part for this overview, isn't it, Lyndall?
Yes, it is. We are in our last little run before we have a break for lunch.
Right. So if you've got any questions about Cargo Connect as a whole, this is where you ask them. After the break, we are going to do a deep dive into the robot game rules this year. So hold your questions on that one. Yeah, and also we're doing how to run the robot game itself after this session. So if you've got any questions, queue them up on Slack and we'll get to them after this. Okay, take it away, Lyndall.
Core values. So core values is something that happens overall, and it's the how you compete, and that is just as important as everything else. So gracious professionalism, woo! You might hear that around. Gracious professionalism is not just clap, clap, woo, but it's something that's come from Brazil that a lot of our teams do. It's a bit of fun and excitement. So gracious professionalism is about helping each other to do the best that you can. It's not about win at all costs. In fact, it's totally the opposite of that. The other word you might hear around core values is co-opetition. Again, that is helping other teams, helping each other, cooperating, working together. So those are two big things when it comes to core values.
Now, if we just head back a slide there, Lyndall.
Yep.
Now, during the COVID lockdown, the need for gracious professionalism and cooperation is going to be extreme. So I strongly suggest, just for the sanity of each other, that you make the most of the opportunities of the Slack channel and the dashboard and the help desk to suggest opportunities, look for opportunities to help each other, encourage your kids to reach out to other teams. If they have access to something that another team doesn't, get them to share it. Help each other get to the competition and make the most of this, because we don't want anybody to fall out because it's all just too hard. We want to help each other get there.
Yeah, so this goes for both the coaches and the team and the kids. You know, this is everybody. Even the parents and the adults need to show gracious professionalism when they're at events.
Now, on that note, I'm going to toss in a couple of things here that are examples of what to do and not to do. Ruth, I just saw posted something. We're going to do a screenshot just before lunch of everybody. So if you can hang on until 12, we'll do a screenshot then. So this will get you massive respect. The robot is failing on the table. The kids are stressed. Someone might be in tears, and the team is cheering them on, encouraging them, saying, you've got it. The kids don't give up. They keep trying. That is being gracious. You want to be gracious professionals. The team that was with them, there's another team in the stands cheering them on. The audience is there encouraging them, saying, you got it, you can do it. Things like that. And adults arguing with a referee about a score, that is not okay. You don't want to be doing that at all. A parent going up and questioning a referee, definitely not okay. A kid questioning a referee, say, hey, I understand what the score was, that's fine. Respectfully arguing with a referee, disagreeing, that's fine. Having an adult fix a kid's code, not okay. An adult standing back and saying, okay, guys, why don't you look at this? Do you think that might be the problem? And letting them fix it and discover it, that's fine. Another robot, someone drops their robot, shatters into a million pieces, helping them put it together, that's awesome. That's what we want to see happening. People getting stressed, helping each other out, that's great. Someone's getting stressed, helping them find a solution, making them laugh, even if they're not in your team, that's fantastic. You are not reduced by helping another team in this competition. It's you versus the table, not you versus each other. So things like that. I'm sure you've all seen good things and bad things over the years. Make a point of making sure you're the team that produces the good things and then pass that on. Okay, take it away, Lyndall.
Right. So again, we have our core values: discovery, innovation, impact, teamwork, inclusion, and fun. So these are things that should be happening through everything, through doing their innovation project and through working on their robot. Everything should be happening. They should always be looking at these things. So I'm just going to go a bit deeper into each of these. So discovery, we explore new skills and ideas. Oh, switch the wrong way. There we go. So this is, as we said before, this is easy for rookies to do because mostly everything's new, but veterans, they need to work on that as well. What are they going to discover? All right, expand on your existing knowledge and look at other teams for inspiration. If you're a veteran team, a bit hard last season to see other robots, but if you've been to an event, you might have seen a particularly good mechanism and you want to know how to do it. So maybe you're going to learn how to do that. Maybe you might need to reach out to another team and go, hey, can you show us how your one-way latches work? We can't quite figure it out. Or How do you use rubber bands? We don't know how to do that. Can you show us? Try something new. All right, we've not used pneumatics before. So this season, we're going to try and use pneumatics in what we're doing. And it's not just about the STEM side of things. There's building skills and things in leadership, service, teaching, volunteering, helping each other, you know, a whole lot of ways you can discover. And it might be more that they discover something with their innovation project. And it was a team, I think the Mafia team again, I think they learned how to do soldering and things like that, using different tools for their innovation project. Innovation, we use creativity and persistence to solve problems. So we have a saying, particularly in FRC, fail fast, fail cheaply. If something's not going to work, you want to know about it sooner rather than later and make the decision to move on rather than persisting with it for 6-8 weeks and then go, no, we've got to stop and start again. So you want to fail fast. We also say there are 3 ways to approach a problem: the obvious way, the creative way, and the crazy way. So we try and look for, you know, how can you approach that mission? You know, what's the obvious way? Can you be creative? Well, what's the really crazy way that you could do this? You know, that arm reaching over the top to do something. Look for inspiration, but don't just copy blindly. All right, so it's okay to go out there and look for things. Yeah, if something's not working, I need an idea on how to make a mechanism work. You can research it, but don't just then copy it blindly. Make sure you understand how you're doing it. Impact. Excuse me. Impact. We apply what we learn to improve our world. So encourage your students to use the skills that they've learned outside of the competition. You know, what can they do? How can they use the skills that they're learning now outside of the competition? So if they're in Scouts or something, they might use their leadership skills. They might use their coding skills to help younger siblings or younger kids in the school, learn how to code, things like that. How can you improve yourself? You know, what can you do to improve what you're doing? Can you improve your attitude, your behavior, and how that impacts on the people around them? And again, teaching each other. If you've got some veterans and rookies in your team, you've got a mixed team, you know, what can the veterans, what information can they pass on to your rookies? You know, if you've got a year 5, 6 team, you know, what information can your year 6s pass on to your year 5s before they've left the school? Inclusion, we respect each other and embrace our differences. Everyone has a voice. How are you going to do that? You know, I know some teams that have an object that when they're in discussions, particularly around their project or even their robot strategy, that if you're holding the object, you get to talk, and they make sure that everybody gets a say. Again, veterans teaching rookies. That's showing respect, embracing differences. And good ideas can come from anywhere. You know, the littlest, youngest kid who hasn't done this before might have the most brilliant idea and look at things in a different way to the 16-year-old veteran who's been there for so many years. And celebrate different abilities and outlooks. You know, everybody has something special about them or a way that they can look at things. So celebrate those things. And we always say you don't have to like each other, but you do have to respect each other. So you might have a team of kids that really don't always get along, don't always like each other, but they do need to show respect to each other. Teamwork. We are stronger when we work together. So encourage a team identity. Right, come up with a fun name for your team. What was that one, Andrew? The jet-powered, what was they? Weren't walruses, what were they, Andrew?
The flying manatees.
That's the ones, yes. There's been pyrotechnic pandas. There's been all sorts of fun names. If the kids have a fun name, they have an identity. They belong together. Develop a team structure, roles in a team. You know, who's going to be in charge, the lead programmer or the lead robot design or the lead project. You know, give it to different people. Don't just have the same person doing everything. Use teamwork games as training. Have some fun building their team skills, how they work together. And include all students in planning before and after each meeting. So we often will sit down with the kids at the beginning of the day when we have our meeting, and we'll talk about all the different things that need to be done. And then the kids they'll assign roles or jobs to each other. And then they come back at the end of the time and go, well, this is what I've done, and be accountable to each other. And make it a team event. So if you've got to have a virtual event, what can you do to make it a fun team event? Can you have a watch party? Can you, can you play some games online while you're waiting for your judging session or after your judging session? How can you make it fun? And fun. We enjoy and celebrate what we do. So, as Andrew said earlier, there's no point in doing this if you don't enjoy it. Celebrate the small wins. That first mission on the board that the robot's done, celebrate it. Have some fun with that. Team celebrations. It could be celebrating birthdays that happen during the season or milestones. You know, we've got our innovation for our project. We've got this really good idea and we've put it together and it works. And yay, we've gotten some feedback and it's all working. Let's celebrate that. Set some fun traditions. You know, what's something that your team can do that is fun? Andrew, what's a tradition that we have?
A hot chip run.
Oh, yes.
Whenever the kids have done a visit to a professional or achieved something spectacular, we run down to the local takeaway, get a family tray of hot chips, and that's party time. And enjoy the tournaments. What can you, if you go to an in-person event, what can you do that's going to make it a little bit more special or fun for the kids? All right, now the judging part of it. All right, so core values happens throughout the whole judging session. Happens at the very beginning when you come in those first 2 minutes. And then at the end, you get a 3 minutes of reflection. All right, so it's 5 minutes all up, but the judges are looking throughout the whole time that you're doing your project presentation and your robot design. They're looking at how your team is interacting. Are they having fun? All of those key things that are on the rubric. Can I butt in there for a sec?
Sure.
So we did get one question asked in the check-ins on how teams do a core values presentation. Now, in my experience so far with this judging format, the only time you have to be able to do any kind of real presentation is in the reflection stage, and that's only 3 minutes. So if you want to have your kids talk about some things they've done, they're going to have to ask the judges, are you okay with us doing that? And the judges may say yes or no. But if they say yes, hey, some palm cards and a quick skip through on these are the things that are important to us. As long as you leave some time for the judges to actually ask some questions of your kids. So maybe 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes tops, that's where you would do it. Now, I don't remember who was it that asked that question, but that's how it applies. So if you've got any more questions on that, please feel free to post them in and we'll see if we can give a better answer. Okay, go for it.
All right, so you are assessed during the tournament and your work during the season. Now, so at a tournament, an event, you could have a positive or negative core values report filed by other people, reports from the game referees, and this year there is a component of your core values that is assessed during the robot game. I'll get to that in a minute, exactly how that works. But during the judging session, you're going to be showing how you work during the season. You may get to do something during the team welcome. You are judged during the entire judging session, and there is the core values reflection, which could be the judges just asking you questions, or it could be you saying, hey, judges, we want to tell you about all the fun things that we've done this season. All right. Again, remember that the coaches cannot speak or help or participate in any way with the judging. All right. So sometimes at events, you may have heard of a core values poster. This is not something that is required for the Australian competition, but it can be a useful tool for the kids to make up a poster of all the things that they've done in all the different areas of the core values to be able to show the judges or tell the judges about. And again, the presentation. So a short description of the activities they've done. It shouldn't be a dramatic play or anything like that. It's just this is the information we want to give you. Again, it is not required for the Australian competition, but it can be helpful. So the on page 21 of the robot game rulebook, it talks about this gracious professionalism being displayed at the robot game table. So at least one of your matches, you will be, your gracious professionalism points will be calculated. So the team's going to start with 3 accomplished. Now, depending on how they interact with the ref and what behavior they're seeing around the table, you could go up to a 4 or down to a 2. If you are a no-show for your game, you will get a 0. All right, especially if you haven't told them that you're not going to be turning up for your robot game. So this then gets, this score then gets fed back through to the judges for deliberation and is added to your overall core values score. So this is something new this season as well. All right, so again, the rubric has the same beginning, developing, accomplished, and exceed. So you're aiming for the accomplished if you can, and that is multiple examples observed across the team. So we have our categories again and our feedback, and we have this extra bit at the top of your rubric about additional awards. Okay, so the first thing, discovery. Team explored new skills and ideas. So they should be able to talk about the new things that they've tried this season, and that may come out through the other things that they've done through their project and their robot design. Remember, the core values judges are looking throughout the whole judging session. Innovation, team use creativity and persistence to solve problems. So you should be ready to talk about a problem that they overcame. How did you what's a problem that you had and how did you solve it? Is often a question the judges may ask. Impact, team applied what they learned to improve their world. So how did they use their skills outside of the competition? What was the impact? And inclusion, what are the differences? Rookie versus veteran, skills, cultures. How did you include everyone's ideas and make it an inclusive team? How did you show respect? Teamwork, team clearly showed they had worked as a team throughout their journey. So have some examples of teamwork ready to discuss. Show teamwork during the judging session. So as you're preparing to do your project presentation or your robot design presentation, work as a team. Don't just have one person getting everyone lined up and do it. Work as a, show that teamwork throughout the whole judging session. And fun, teams clearly had fun and celebrated what they achieved. So how can your team show fun during the judging session? You know, is it a fun thing they can do for team identity? You know, are they enjoying themselves doing their presentation? Things like that. And then there's these awards. Now, these aren't necessarily going to be at every event. They're more likely to be at the larger events. So I think Andrew mentioned them before. We have the Breakthrough Award, the Rising All-Star, and the Motivate. So if you get a tick in one of those areas, the judges were really taking notice of you. So this is just useful for the judges to know what the judges are looking for when you're doing this. All right, so again, core values, we could do some documentation. Again, a one-pager, team photo, logo, who you are, what you do, the challenges you've faced, achievements that you've had, and how you have fun. So, you know, are you a community team? Are you a school team? Are you a family? You know, what do you do? Are you scouts? Are you a youth group? You know, what challenges you had to overcome? We had to overcome lockdown. Yes, everyone's going to have to overcome that, but we had to overcome lockdown as a team of 3 9-year-olds. So that made it really harder. We've never used Zoom before or anything, something like that. And then again, this is our contents page of our core values logbook. We break it down into each of the different sections as to what we've done. And again, this is overkill for what is required at a usual event, but that's just us. All right. Do we have any questions?
We have someone asking, what ideas do you have for demonstrating GP during the robot game for a virtual event?
Okay, we'll start with that one.
Can I answer that one, Linda?
Sorry, Andrew?
Can I answer that one?
You can.
Okay, so I was a robot judge, a robot referee at the APOC, and there was one team that really impressed the heck out of me with their GP during the video. And they did it by, the excitement was palpable. They were cheering on their robot operators. It wasn't bland, here our robot goes, just watching the robot in silence. They were jumping up and down. One of the robot functioned beautifully, and one of them came up and gave the operator a spontaneous hug and then cleared out again. They were doing a team chant. They were cheering almost continually. They said thank you to the robot when it was done. When something went wrong, they were encouraging each other. It was awesome to watch and to listen to. So that is a really good way to do it.
Didn't they also say thank you to the ref as well?
Oh yeah, they said thank you to the refs at the end. That's a nice add-on. Yep. So that's one way to do it. You got anything else to add on that one, Lyndall?
No, I think that you covered everything with that one. All right, so there's more to that question. So how to broaden the team's inclusivity in a virtual event? To volunteers, especially to the refs, e.g. thank you to the refs, to volunteer sponsors, and especially other teams.
Okay. Inclusivity.
So thanking the refs at the end of your robot game video is one way. To say thank you to the judges at the end of your judging session before you leave your virtual room, or even before you leave your judging session, would be another thing. Often there's a waiting room in a virtual event before you go into your judging session, so the kids could say thank you to the people running, the host running the event. Those are, I guess, simple things that the kids could do.
Another thing you could do is ask the tournament organizer if they'd be willing to facilitate an opportunity for teams to talk to each other. If you know teams that are going to the event, you could do a watch party together, find out which teams are going and organize your own video chat at some point, just to chat and cheer each other on and congratulate and compare notes and things like that.
I think we did that with one of the teams last year. we worked out what our judging schedules were, and then we hopped on a Zoom call after we'd finished our judging, and the teams showed each other their robots and talked about their projects and stuff.
Yeah.
All right, another question. What happens if one student gets too anxious during the robot game or worked up?
Okay. So I've been a ref for a long time. So if a child is overcome for whatever reason, no one's going to hold that against them, ever. If team members comfort that child, help them get through it, and basically protect them, that is something that a referee will notice and say, that's good teamwork. That's good GP. If the child is anxious or overcome and recovers from it, that is also something that makes referees go, wow. On a management note, there are quiet rooms at a lot of these things. If a kid can't cope, if someone else can step up to replace them and the team just accepts it, it's fine. That goes towards inclusivity. Looking after your team members, each team member looking out for each one. It's not a big deal. It's okay. We know you did your best. We love you anyway. Let's go. Is that the type of thing you're asking?
It was Carolina.
Actually, Andrew, can I just give a fairly specific example? I was starting to write it, but it's probably going to be quicker.
Go for it, Ruth.
Yeah. So firstly, I have ADHD and I have autism. So I really, really get this. And oddly enough, I've got a lovely bunch of people that have differences that really, really need support too. Last year, we massively got to meltdown with one of the team members. The team is just fantastic. They kick in and support each other. They actually take the pressure off each other. But the thing was, I was able to let the organisers know, and we were really blessed to have a different time slot, or be given a different time slot. Now, in the end, the team member that wasn't coping and literally went into meltdown, like he literally couldn't get words. So we had to rewrite scripts and everything at short notice and, whatever, but that didn't matter. He still participated by choosing what he could participate in, which was literally doing the slides. And that was fantastic. But oddly enough, by the end of it, when they were being asked some questions, so remembering that we have that half an hour slot, and he kind of really didn't cope at the IP point, like at that particular point, by the time we got through to another part where he had much, much more of a role, it still wasn't that great, but, in terms of what he can do normally, but it was great because he actually stuck his head on camera, and like for us, that was just like the biggest celebration like this. It was just like, for me, that was like, oh my gosh, the team had actually been able to support him enough to allow him to have the time, the space to do a bit of recovery, enough to be able to stick his face on the camera. Now, this guy's not, a rookie in terms of FLL. So, it happens to everybody given the right situation. So between event organisers building for success with our teams and our kids, between like as a coach, I definitely stepped in and said to the organisers, this team isn't doing okay right now. And they knew that my kids have special needs, or they termed as special needs. I just know that they think differently and they have their strengths, but any team can get to the point where on the day, anxiety can trigger to the point where the person actually literally can't function well. But certainly for my case with the autism, I literally can get to the point where I have a meltdown. I don't usually, because I'm the mentor and I kind of almost get the relaxing part by then. But the kids may have very different stories, and that's what happened with my team. So they were supported, the team supported them, didn't go as planned, but we got through. And that was the thing that we actually celebrated in the end. It was just like, that is gold, So if that helps you, Carolina, it's great. Okay.
So I just sort of follow up. Can a coach step up to look after the student? Are you asking in a judging session or the robot game, Carolina?
So I'm talking about the robot game, and I am specifically talking about special needs. So it's not something that we can train because it could just be your little person might be just, it might be a bit too much. And although the team can step up and take care of the little person, if it was too much, is it possible to step in and say, you know, just come with me and it'll be okay, sort of thing?
Yep, I would say definitely.
Yeah.
To make, I remember, I think I said at the beginning, we normally let the tournament know ahead of time that there are kids that have special circumstances or something like that. So if you
great.
note to the event organizers, hey, this is happening. And if you have a quiet word in the ear of the referee at the table, hey, this is Fred. Fred may need to retreat at a certain point, in which case I'll take him and go. They'll nod, say, yeah, not a problem.
Carolina, we
great.
Within the team, we also talked about that happening. Like our team members were really open with each other, which was lovely. And we talked about it as in extreme anxiety on the day or that sort of stuff. So it made it more accessible to everybody in the team. But then again, my team is also very, very open to each other about the differences they have and where their strengths and weaknesses are. But my team's an older team, so I'm not sure what age range you're talking about. But honestly, yeah, I haven't really needed to step in. We've kind of tried to set up and do social, so like we talk about social stories beforehand and stuff like part of what I do is doing that sort of stuff with my team. So if you want to catch up with me privately, feel free.
Oh, thank you so much.
No worries.
Yeah, not a problem. And in fact, my team might be able to actually support your team too, depending on what's going on. So, because we're looking for a way for our team to do that. Anyway, talk to me privately.
Okay. Great. Thank
Jackie?
you.
Oh, I was just going to add that it's happened to us a few times and we've let the judges know, but most people who are judging have been a coach or a participant or something before. So they've seen it all before, they know it before, you know, and in each situation, the judges actually look to me to give me the nod to say, go ahead, do what you need to do. So it was seen from their perspective. I didn't actually need to ask.
Yeah. Okay, so we are at...
Sorry, I will make one other comment. So when we were doing the APOC recently, I would also make note that not everybody, so teams from overseas didn't actually tell us those sorts of things necessarily. So sometimes if you get to something like an international event, you might need to really put your hand up and tell people because they won't necessarily ask. But we noticed, so like for one of the teams particularly, we noticed that there were some significant differences, but it would have been nice to know what we could have done to support them as judges more too. So...
The judges are there to make it a good event for the kids. They're trying to encourage the kids and lift them up. You know, they're looking out for the kids as well as your coaches. So they want the kids to shine and do the best that they can.
And I will say, if you ever have extreme good fortune to get Jack Ackus as your referee, he will. There, I'm seeing the signs already. He will take any kid that's having a bad day and make it a good day. Jack is awesome.
Yes. All right. On that note, we need to have a very short lunch break. 20
Group photo
minutes.
first.
Oh, yes.